Welcome back, students. During this class, we will study about. During previous class, we studied about linear expansion, and that type of expansion was only in one dimension. So this time we are going to study about. We will study about volumetric thermal expansion. So at it indicates from its heading that is volume increases after heating. So volume is basically three dimension: length, breadth, and height. So we will consider three factors to increase after heating. So if you define it in a very simplest way, so what will be the your approach? Then it will be the increase in volume of a substance after heating is called volumetric thermal expansion. Heating a block causes increase in its length, breadth, and thickness. So this is the reason why we consider three-dimension increase. So if you look at the increase in length, breadth, and thickness, that is volume of the block increases, which is known as volumetric expansion. So in simplest language, if anyone asks you how will you define volumetric expansion, our answer is very much simple. If volume of a substance increases after heating, that is called volumetric expansion. Or if the expansion takes place in three dimension, then that type of the expansion is said to be volumetric expansion. So here it is. If on what are the factors on which the volumetric expansion depends? If we heat a block, then increase in volume in block depends on following three factors. What are the following three factors? These are three: original volume of the block, number two, change in temperature, number three, nature of the material of the block. These are the 3 points which were common in case of linear expansion. There, the original length of the block, and then there was a common, that is change in temperature, and then nature of the material is the same for the both. But there you have studied about the length, and here we are considering the volume. So original volume of any block, and then change in temperature, and the nature of the material. These are the three factors on which it depends. So here it is. It is denoted by beta, and this beta is called coefficient of volumetric expansion. It is equal to del V divided by V naught. Change in volume per unit volume per degree per Kelvin rise in temperature. So if I raise the temperature through 1 Kelvin, then the increase in volume uh, and the original volume, that is equal to basically coefficient of volumetric expansion. We will see its derivations. When I am not going to start from this point because derivation will be done later on. So here it is, derivation of an expression. Consider a solid block of initial volume V naught at uh, temperature T naught, and after heating it to the temperature T, the volume of changes to V. So here it is. The increase in volume is basically V plus V naught. This is the increase in volume, the change in volume, that is del V. And this is the temperature at which you have increased the temperature of the block. So with the increase of the temperature, its volume has increased from V to V naught to V. Here it is, the volume at temperature T1. And here is volume at temperature T. Low temperature, its length is this one. If you look at when the temperature was low, the length of the volume of the block is this one. But when we have increased its temperature further from this point, this is the increase. This one is basically increase in the volume. You see this increase in three dimensions: length, breadth, and height. So, so this is the effect of after heating. When we heat a block, the length, breadth, and height, the increase in three dimensions. So the temperature at T naught, the volume was V naught. When temperature increased from T naught to T, then the volume has increased from V naught to V. So This is basically called volumetric expansion. Mathematically, this change in increase in volume is directly proportional to original volume. Here you can see it in the found that the change in volume of a solid block is directly proportional to its original volume and the change in temperature. It is directly proportional to original volume. It's directly proportional to the change in temperature. When we combine these two, we get del V directly proportional to V naught del T. Here it's the proportionality constant, and we replace it with the constant of volumetric expansion, that is beta, and del V is equal to beta V del T. If you are asked to calculate the beta, then you will change this del V with the difference of the volume, that is V, the increase in volume and the initial volume, that is the increase difference, that is beta V naught del T. If you simplify it, this V naught is cancelled with this one, then finally you will be getting V is equal to beta this one del V, beta del V. And if you further simplify by putting the value of change of temperature, then we will be getting this one beta is equal to del V, V naught del T. This is the change increase in volume per degree per Kelvin rise in temperature per unit volume. That is basically coefficient of volumetric expansion, where beta is the proportionality constant and it's called coefficient of volumetric expansion. So here it is defined like this. So what's the definition? Definition is a temperature coefficient of volume expansion is the frictional change in its volume. This is the frictional change in its volume per Kelvin rise change in temperature. So here is the definition of the coefficient of volumetric expansion. So come back for the main points. What had happened? This is basically increase in volume of a substance after heating is called volumetric thermal expansion. So here it is. What was the initial temperature before heating? The temperature and volume were this one. And after heating, the temperature and volume of the block is this one. So after heating, the volume has increased up to this limit. So we have applied the basic concept. This increase in volume is directly proportional to original volume. This increase in volume of the block is directly proportional to the change increase in temperature. We combine these two, we are getting del V directly proportional to V naught del T. So here is the proportionality sign, and we replace it with constant. This beta is called coefficient of volumetric expansion. And finally, you will calculate the value of beta. Basically, this beta is 3 times of alpha, because in case of alpha, that is linear, only one side increase in length. But in case of volumetric expansion, the increase in length is in 3 dimensions. That is length, breadth, and height. So that's why beta is equal to del V over del T. If this beta is equal to 3 alpha, this beta is 3 times. It is half sometimes. This beta is equal to 3 times of alpha, because in alpha there is only one linear expansion, but in case of beta, the volumetric expansion, the expansion is 3 dimensional, length, breadth, and height. The temperature coefficient of volume expansion is the frictional change in its volume per Kelvin change in temperature. So if the block of 1 meter cube volume is heated to a temperature difference of 1 Kelvin, then the change in volume of the block is called volumetric coefficient of volumetric expansion. So here it is denoted by beta, its unit is per Kelvin. So relation between the coefficient of linear expansion and coefficient of thermal expansion, volumetric expansion is beta is equal to 3 alpha. Basically, the volumetric expansion is 3 times of linear expansion. Why? Because when you take a block, the increase in volume, increase in length is equal to increase in volume is equal to increase in length, breadth, and height 3 times. So that's why it is 3 times f alpha. So if anytime it is asked what's the relation of volumetric expansion with the linear expansion, it is 3 times of linear expansion, because the expansion is in along 3 dimensions. So consequences of thermal expansion. So these are some of the consequences which are noted here. The expansions of the solids may damage bridge railway tracks. Bridges are damaged, railway tracks. You people have seen different pictures in different places. So that shows the expansion of the railway tracks. Why? Because during summer season they contract expands, and during winter season the tracks contracts. So this is the reason we have placed different types of fish plates and other objects to make easier for the motion to and fro motion of the railway tracks to prevent damaging of the railway. They are constantly subjected to temperature changes. Of course, railway tracks and other types of objects which are exposed outside, they are facing extreme types of the weather condition. Provision is made during construction for expansion and contraction with temperature. Steps are taken, special steps are taken by the construction of bridge, by the construction of buildings and other places, heavy machinery. So a point is considered of thermal expansion. Sometimes if you don't consider, it results into a big loss. Railway tracks buckled on a hot summer day due to expansion. If gaps are not left between the sections, if the gap is not between the sections of the railway track, they will buckle, they will turn over. So they will be a source of a big accidents in some of the cases. The bridge is made of steel. Riders also expand during day and contact during night, so their contraction expansion is facilitated by during the course of construction. They will bend when their hands are fixed and allow thermal expansion. So that's why they can move slide over one another. Cylindrical shape. One hand is placed on cylindrical surface, so they can easily move on the cylindrical surface. One end is fixed while the other end rests. One of the guiders rests on the ruler in gaps lift for expansion. So with this, our class is over. I thank you very much for your patience. I hope you